Did you press your timer?
I did press my timer.
Good. Right. Good morning.
Error. Reset. Go again.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. Whatever time of day you are deciding to listen to the Proper Wellbeing Chat. I am Ross Gyrey and I am with Mr. Ben Johnson, and we are talking all things resistance training today. Specifically, why you need resistance training, and then just how do you do it. So this is a podcast. Obviously, you won't be able to see, but the great thing is we are so good at describing things, you will be a master at resistance training just from listening to this program. How are you doing today, sir?
I am all good. I am all good today. Hello, everybody. I'm just thinking I'm going to be waving my arms around so much during this session. I might even get up and be jumping around in my room. Who knows? But yeah, let's make sure that our description. I was going to say we're not specifically going to be talking like how to squat or how to deadlift or stuff like that. This for me, this is one of mine almost. I was having a chat with a relatively new client the other day, and she's like, this resistance training you keep going on about, is that like strength training? And I just realized it's like there's so much misunderstood, and we see it all the time, don't we, in the gym? People wasting time basically in the gym because they don't really know what resistance training kind of is, or they might know roughly what resistance training is, but kind of how to effectively incorporate it into their program as well, because there's so many different ways of doing it. And essentially, everybody out there listening to this, I'm sure, is looking for a bit of muscle definition, that kind of toned in inverted commas. It's not a thing. We need to do a podcast on why toned is not a thing, but that's not for today. We all want to get good results, don't we, with minimal effort. That's what we're looking for. So let's make sure that your resistance training is as good as it possibly can be. So what are the kind of issues that we often see in the gym? Kind of what problems do we often see people struggling with when it comes to resistance training?
I would say, on a bigger picture, not having a structured plan to measure progress, that they're actually improving at their resistance training, and then not going through it effectively enough. So potentially wasting time, potentially not getting results, potentially losing motivation, and then skipping workouts in the cycle that they get. But a lot of it comes back to not having a structured plan and not exactly knowing what's best for them for their goal. So kind of just going in there and winging it a little bit, maybe doing some resistance, maybe doing some cardio. But we'll put all that to bed in this podcast today.
Absolutely. Because we want to say, like, resistance training principles are actually really easy to follow when you understand them. I mean, as PTs, for us, they kind of have to be quite easy for us to follow, don't we? But they can become massively complicated. And I think this is where people get really, you might look at a magazine article or an online article, and it's talking about, these periodizations, these set schemes and rep schemes and all this kind of stuff. People disappear down this rabbit hole. But ultimately, what we want to do today is to talk some of the basics, some of the real fundamentals to training principles, to make them easy to follow, so that you can focus on the aspect of resistance training that is important to you and that's going to get you the most benefit. But I suppose actually just before we do jump into that, it's worth mentioning almost like what's the difference between resistance and cardio very, very briefly. So I would say resistance training, basically you're moving some weight around, aren't you, be that body weight or whatever it may be. So what is that difference between resistance training and cardio in 30 seconds or less?
I was about to ask you this. So
all right.
cardio training, let's look at it from a gym point of view. Cardio training, you're doing some sort of cardio equipment, maybe treadmill, cross trainer, bike, something like that, but something that's going to really predominantly be working your lungs, getting you breathing, getting you sweating a little bit. Resistance training is anything where you are creating resistance and moving against it, i.e. lifting weights, i.e. body weight training. Okay, so it's less cardio, but more from a muscle point of view. That is the simplest way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Another quick one I'd add on to that as well, which I sometimes do with clients, is if you think about your cardio-based stuff, you're doing like real high rep movements. You know, if you think if you go to a runner and a cross trainer, you're doing hundreds, if not thousands, of that movement pattern. If you're doing resistance training, you're somewhere in that. Well, it depends. We're going to get into this, but you're somewhere in that lower rep category, maybe up to 50 reps during a session, maybe slightly more, yeah, but you're not doing hundreds or thousands of repetitions of that particular move. It has to be lower, and you've got to be moving some weight around. So
there are two big areas, I would say, mate. I'd say there's two big areas to cover with resistance training. So run people through them.
Okay, so for me, I'm going to say that there's three main types of resistance training. Okay, now again, this can get a little bit varied, but coming back to the basics, there is strength-based resistance training, there is hypertrophy or muscle building based resistance training, and then there's endurance-based resistance training. And people tend not to do endurance-based too much, or that kind of bleeds into that more cardio-based kind of thing. So I'm going to touch on endurance training during this, but the focus today is going to be a bit more on that strength and that hypertrophy base. So that's number one, is that there's three different types of resistance training. And then number two is that when you are doing resistance training, particularly in the early days, compound movements beat isolation movements. And if that makes no sense to you at all at the moment, we're going to dig into that in a little bit towards the end of the podcast about what is a compound move and why you need to do them, because they give you that much bigger bang for your buck. Now, when I'm talking about strength and hypertrophy, though, the way that all this fits together is like real simple. You're going to do a number of sets, so kind of how many repetitions of an exercise you're going to do during one set before you do a rest. You're going to do a number of repetitions of that movement pattern. You're going to need to think about what weight you're going to be using, the rest period you're using, and then hopefully we're going to get into a little bit about kind of periodization, when you can add them into your workouts and what they are beneficial for. So shall I just fire in straight kind of what is strength and what is hypertrophy, and the two quick differences in those, because I think we need to cover that and then get into the benefits much more, because that's much more beneficial for people.
Yeah, people probably need to know the difference, mate. So let them know.
Yeah. So this means, because it comes out that question, is resistance training strength training? The answer is kind of yes and no, because strength training forms part of that resistance training. And the way to look at it is that strength-based work is essentially a higher number of sets in a session, but a lower number of reps within each set. So a classic strength-based setup would be something like 5 by 5, where you're doing 5 work sets with 5 repetitions per set. But you might be doing 6 by 3, or 4 by 4 or something like that. But the total number of repetitions that you're doing in a session is quite low. It's usually under 30 for it to be a strength-based session. You also then need to take longer rest periods between sets, so 2 to 3 minutes within that. And that is essentially how to set up for strength-based stuff. Whereas hypertrophy, you're moving, the one thing was the weight. I missed that one. Generally speaking, you're using much heavier weights, or the heaviest weights that you will be using during a set. If I miss something, mate, just jump in.
Yeah, so before you go into hypertrophy, right, before you go into that, let's go into the benefits of strength, and then we'll go into the benefits of hypertrophy afterwards as well. So the benefits of strength, pretty self-explanatory for those of you listening, but run them through the benefits of strength, bud.
Yeah, so this, I was almost going to flip on his head and just quickly talk about hypertrophy first, but you interrupted me. So the benefits of strength training is obviously you get stronger. Yeah. So first and foremost, your ability just to kind of function day to day is much improved. Yeah. If you're able to deadlift heavy, squat heavy, that kind of thing, and shout out to one of our clients today, I'll let you say a name if you want to, who's just hit bodyweight squat day, in fact, more than bodyweight squat today. It gives you this real kind of powerful feeling, loads of confidence going on. You can, push that car or move the sofa across the room, whatever it may be, if you are strong, first and foremost. But adding into that as well, it gives you a real solid platform for the rest of your training. Okay. If you're working more in the hypertrophy and endurance-based rep range, whilst you do build a small amount of strength, you don't ultimately build an awful lot of strength. strength. So say, for example, if you're able to move a barbell for 12 reps or so with 40 kilos, yeah, you're not going to be able to push that particularly far ultimately. So your total volume of work that you are doing in a session is quite low. Yeah. Whereas if you are able to move 60 kilos for 12 reps, your volume is increasing. You're getting a much bigger bang for your buck in your training routine. Yeah. But you can't build that base level of strength and therefore push up to 12 reps for 60 kilos by doing the 12 rep sets. You need to do those low rep sets, those strength-based sets, to be able to push the total amount of weight that you can move higher. Yeah, so strength forms a fundamental building block to any quality training program. Okay. Now you can add them in almost wherever you want. So I was going to jump into hypertrophy briefly and say,
let's go there.
A little bit as well, can't you? Yeah. So hypertrophy stuff, or muscle building, yeah, getting that muscle definition, getting that bit more kind of toned look, along with fat loss as well. So at this stage, you're talking, generally speaking, a slightly lower number of sets. So maybe 3 sets or 4 sets, or sometimes 2 sets, something like that. You're doing more reps within each of those sets. You're using a slightly lighter weight, more of like an intermediate weight, and you're taking shorter rest periods. Okay, so the classic with this one is the 3x12. Yeah, so you do 3 work sets, you do 12 reps in a work set. You're using, like, say, a moderate weight, and you're then resting for, I'm going to say, 60 seconds. There or thereabouts, might be 90 seconds, might be a bit shorter. Okay, but then your total reps per session, and this is for me where I work as a coach as well. It's a really good way to think about it. It's almost a total number of reps per session that you're doing. So if you're doing your strength-based stuff and you're doing, like say 4x4, that's 16 reps. If you're doing 5x5, that's 25 reps. 6x3, 18 reps. That's all strength-based. But if we're doing 3x12, that's 36 reps. If you're doing 4x8, which is at the lower end of the hypertrophy range, so you're doing 8 reps in the set, 4x8, that's 32 reps. So you want to be working in a total rep range of between 30 and up to around 50 per session. Okay, so that's a real good way to think about hypertrophy, with how many reps you're doing across a session. So relatively speaking, lower sets, higher reps, intermediate weights, short rest periods. Simple as that.
And what are the benefits of hypertrophy then?
Makes you look good, doesn't it?
It does make you look good. It does. It does. It's good for fat loss. It helps with fat loss.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's great as a transition, because I think a lot of people start in the endurance phase when they don't really know what they're doing, lifting weights that are far too light for far too many reps. And then hypertrophy is great for the fat loss side of things, building muscle, how you look aesthetically, and with a little bit of increase in strength. And if you're new to it as well, you'll have a great increase in strength. Like, you will absolutely get stronger from doing hypertrophy. And then as you move more towards the strength phase, so the lower reps, the longer rest time, you change physically less, but strength-wise goes through the roof. So that's why combining them works really well.
Absolutely. I'd also say as well, it's almost like when you first start, anything does work, doesn't it? And I said before, it's like strength. You can't get stronger just by doing hypertrophy. When you first start off, that's not true. You're absolutely right. You do. But also within that, because you're using a lighter weight, so when you do an endurance space, so that endurance rate, I'm going to touch on very, very briefly because we're running out of time already.
I think endurance is worth about 30 seconds of time, mate.
Absolutely. You're basically doing very high rep sets, aren't you? You're like 50 plus reps in a set, and you might do 1 or 2 of them, and you basically take very limited rest periods. Is that simple?
Okay. Probably minging form, probably far too light. Like,
mate, I was going to say on that one, well, let's just say, because for me, that endurance is where people start, and with hypertrophy as well, it allows you to perfect your form, doesn't it? Before you go heavy, because if you go heavy, you've got to have good form. Is the long and the short of it, don't you? Yeah, so it's really, really important when you're doing that hypertrophy or endurance stuff when you first start off, get your form right.
Too right.
That's what it is. So it does have value there. But yeah, that hypertrophy stuff is ultimately what people are looking for. So just think at higher reps, intermediate weight is the long and short of it. Yeah. Right. I think we need to move real quickly on, so we need to talk about compound stuff as well. But we did want to touch about on some of the benefits of these as well, and kind of how you fit them in. So real quickly on this one, because it's going to be probably another podcast in that case, is mix it up during either a month period. So you might do a month-based strength workouts, yeah, and then after that you might then move into some hypertrophy-based workouts. That's one way of doing it, yeah. Or you can do, say, one strength workout in a week and one hypertrophy in a week, or a couple of hypertrophy, or the opposite way around. There's loads of ways that you can start mixing this up, and this is really where you start digging into programming and periodization, and it gets real complicated. And at that point in time, if you're like, well, I'm out, go and have a look on the internet or hire a coach or whatever, because hopefully now with this understanding of how resistance training works, you can start analyzing programs that you're looking at and going, oh, okay, I see what kind of workout that's giving me and the response that I am going to get from it. That's ultimately what we're trying to do here, isn't it? But that's probably a topic for another day.
That's a topic for another day.
It is, because the other thing that we have to touch on with this, because this is really important, is that kind of compound versus isolation. I have rambled on here, mate. I think it's your time. Let's say 5 minutes. What is the necessity? What's the benefits? Why should people do compound training first and foremost rather than isolation based? Or what are they to start?
So compound training is movements that work many muscle groups at once. Isolation training is when you do ab crunches or bicep curls and you're just working one muscle group, okay? And we train everyone in, I'd say 90% minimum compound exercises, unless there's specific things that we have to develop on individual people. All our workouts are compound because you're covering loads of muscle groups at once. So then you're building more muscle mass across these areas, and then you're holding on to more muscle, and then you're burning more calories doing what you do. But this whole time as well, you're developing core strength, spine strength, right? So anyone who is doing ab crunches all the time to get abs and wondering why it's not happening, you probably need to put in significantly more compound exercises. So deadlifts, squats, lunges, thrusters, all these different moves, like even bent over rows, pull-ups, chin-ups, all these different things that you're like, well, I don't want to do all them because I just want abs. Well, actually, these things will help develop your core way more than if you are just doing crunches, for example, and you get all the other insane benefits. So compound is fantastic. And if you're looking at adding these into your training programs, I'd definitely look at starting with 2 or 3 big lifts. Then if you want to do an isolated move afterwards, do that at the end of a session. But always start with big compound lifts. You can even have a full session of only compound lifts. You get significantly more out of your workout doing those.
Absolutely. I'd say one of the reasons why people don't do them as well is that they are tough to get right. How to squat properly, how to deadlift properly. So do check out. There's a ton of YouTube videos out there. Look for a competent coach. We've got some videos on this. You might want to check some of our stuff. Speak to the coaches in your gym. Hire a coach in your gym. Reach out to us for support. We do online. We obviously do in person as well. But get this stuff right, and it just means you're not wasting time in the gym. It's like you're going in, you're doing a 45-minute session or whatever, and a huge amount of bang for your buck, and you're not mucking about doing bicep curls for days that aren't getting you, or ab crunches that aren't really getting you anywhere. So roughly what kind of plan are we looking for people to be doing with this? Kind of what exercise or what areas of the body they want to be focusing on, and kind of what exercises to put into those, and then roughly what is that plan going to look like for them going forward. Let's touch on that, and then we can wrap it up.
Real basic. Let's look at 3 to 4 compound exercises per workout. Yeah, on different areas of your body. So you're probably working full body every session. It's a good way to look at it. Keep it simple. And then 3 sets of 12s. Easy. Three sets, 12 reps, for each of the compound lifts. And then as you're getting more confident, move into a strength phase, but keep it easy, 3 times 12.
That's it, mate. Yeah. Get that form right, get that rough idea of weight, and as you get that confidence, go heavy. Start building a good base of strength. And if you want, just add that strength in during your week, or do it, like you say, a strength-based specific session. But start doing resistance training if you're not doing it already. Gain confidence in that free weights area, keep it simple, and then build that strength stuff in as you go. It basically means that you're not wasting time in the gym. You're going to see better results. You're going to have simple, productive gym sessions, aren't you? You're going to develop that physique that you're actually in the gym. You're going to develop confidence in terms of what you're doing, and you're just going to get to be an absolute badass, to be quite honest. So let's wrap it up there, because once again, we have gone on too long. But if you've had a look at that, hopefully you've come away with an idea of now how you can integrate resistance training into your plan better, kind of why you need it, some of the benefits. But if in doubt, do hire a competent coach just to learn those big compound movements. Where can they find us if they want to hire a competent coach, Ross? In no way do we want to plug our services at this point. Where can they go to get in touch?
Well, I'll be honest, mate, competent coaches are hard to find nowadays. So I would definitely head to www.aeonhaf, that's haf.co.uk. Check us out there. There's plenty we've got going on our website. Check us out on YouTube, our social medias, plenty of form guides there to get going as well. And that is where you'll find us. All right.
Awesome. Let's wrap it there.
Happy days.
A good one. But any questions, any comments, come back to us, because this is a huge topic. We've literally skimmed the surface there. So any questions, any comments, come back to us. We would love to answer them. Brilliant. We will catch you in the next proper wellbeing chat podcast. We'll see you soon.
See ya.